Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wanda here. I just thought that I'd love to share with you. A lot of people ask me, Wanda, how did you get sorted into tarot readings? And I suppose everybody has their own story to tell. Hi, everybody who's jumping on. Welcome. It's just hi, Shirley. How are you, darling? Missed you this morning on today's tarot. This is something different. I wanted to sort of just share with you. You can see my little Buddha head in the background. I wanted to share with you how I got into tarot readings. The funny thing is that there's always a life circumstance that brings you into a reason why we do things. Hello, everybody who's jumping on right now. And I have never really had like an easy upbringing, an easy life. Both my parents had post-traumatic stress, and my mother was brought up in a Japanese concentration camp in her early years, like the formative years, from her birth right up to about 5 years old. And she had really bad experiences, traumatic experiences with the Japanese soldiers at the time, forcing her to look at dead bodies when she was very, very young. And so she never attended funerals, and every time somebody died in our family or in her family, she'd always freak out. Anyway, that's what I remember as a child. Both my parents had, like I said, post-traumatic stress, so as they got older it got progressively worse. With my father, he was always quite intuitive. He had a few of his own very interesting psychic experiences, and it wasn't until later on in life when I started actually learning how to read the cards. And the reason why I wanted to learn how to read the cards was because I just felt like I had no control over my life. Like, it felt like I was this complete and absolute victim of what life was dishing out to me at a very young age. So by the time I turned 13, my mother left home. She went with another man. It was a disastrous divorce. My father had a nervous breakdown on top of that post-traumatic stress. I had to start working when I was 13, and oh my God, the story. Anyway, what I always wanted was I wanted to have enough money to be able to travel and all of that kind of thing. And even though I was quite lucky, with going to university and things like that, and I made my own success, I still wondered why my life was such a struggle. And I suppose in one way I wanted to be able to control it. I wanted to be able to control my life and determine my next step, because I was really afraid. I was so afraid of letting life decide for me how that would work. And of course my father would always be saying, you've got to work hard. So from the age of 13, I had no mother in my life, and just my father, who was still very much a military man. My upbringing was very strange. But the funny thing is, thinking back on it now, even though it was hard, I would not want it any other way, because it created the person who I am right now. So when after my first divorce, I've only been divorced once, I had to come back to Australia. I sort of moved overseas and got married and had a baby straight away. And then that didn't sort of work. My husband decided at the time that, things weren't what he thought it was in marriage. And so he sort of went back to his mum and dad, which left me with my dad. And I had to come back to Australia to live and start all over again with a little child. And for me, being a Catholic girl, being brought up Catholic, it was pretty horrible. It was pretty horrible. And there was, I suppose in one way, like a sense of shame, like I'd failed. I'd failed in my life, that my mum and dad got divorced, and so therefore that was the reason I got divorced. I think that I was looking for a dream that didn't exist at the time, and I married for all the wrong reasons. And so anyway, single mothering, coming right on, got back into the Catholic system because that's what I was that's where I was basically trained, and I started to work my ass off basically. But I found it really difficult, just like working and surviving. My life felt like that. It felt like working and surviving, and I wanted more, but I didn't know how to get that. And through one of my friends, I met a tarot reader, and the two of us together learnt new ways of using the cards. And my very first deck was just a pack of normal cards, like a pack of playing cards, just like this. And I never looked at the tarot before or anything like that. And a tarot lady at the time, who lived down the south coast close to me, she's passed away now. Her name was Fiona McCullum, and she actually, maybe some of you might know her or have known of her. She used to read the tarot cards on 2GB a lot of years ago, and I used to listen to her every Sunday night. And funny enough, she reached out, and I bought my first pack of cards from her, and she taught me how to read the cards. Now, that was the best time of my life. And the funny thing is, when I said to my father, look what I've done, I've bought this pack of cards, and I really felt like I could control my life by spreading out the cards, and I could see what was in the future, and I would know what actions to take. And these were my babies. It became my outside consciousness. It became my security blanket. And if there was anything I was ever worried about, if it was about getting a new job, or wondering whether I was going to work with that colleague okay, or what should I do in a new relationship coming in, I always consulted my cards. And funny enough, when I started to use the cards and understand how to use them, and that my own natural psychic ability was where my power was, oh my God, I wasn't anymore, I suppose, living from my inner guidance or trusting myself, because I was relying on the cards. And the funny thing is, when my father discovered that I was using the cards, he said to me, oh, it's funny, but your grandmother used to be the town medium. And I said, really? Like, really? Why didn't you tell me this before? And he goes, oh, I just didn't think about it. But everybody used to go to my grandmother and sit with her and have a cup of coffee. I mean, my grandmother was Dutch, and everyone would sit with a cup of coffee and she would read for them. So, okay, so here we get back to the cards. But for me, it was a completely different reason, because you know what? Down at the very bottom of the core of myself, I was afraid of life. I was afraid of living. I was afraid of making more mistakes, because my earlier life was so shit, really. Like, I had to squeeze bits of happiness in between. It was my growth for sure, but I didn't see it that way at the time. I just wanted to avoid making more mistakes, more misery, more sadness. I wanted to be happy, and I thought that maybe by using and knowing how to use the cards was really great. And something from a movie I saw with Shirley MacLaine that was called Out on a Limb. She says in that movie, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And I thought, oh, that is brilliant. That is a perfect reason for me to start using these cards. So that's how I started reading. And well, needless to say, I was really good at it. The only thing I sucked at was reading for myself. I could read for everybody. I could read for everybody else, and everybody would be, ringing me up and going, Wanda, can you do a reading? And back then, oh, this is even sicker. I thought, oh, well, it's a natural gift. God's given me this gift. So I used to do readings for people for free all the time. I used to go and pay other tarot readers for their services, but somehow or another, that the penny just didn't drop. And I started learning, I started reading for people, even your politicians and things like that, and they would be lawyers, high court lawyers, even far out, and judges even. So they'd be consulting me for their cards, which basically, hi everybody who's hopped on. Hi Ted, hi Madday, how are you darling? I hope you're well, and thank you those who are still on. So anyway, that was me and my cards, and I slowly began to be able to notice that I could manipulate them, the power of my mind, when I was reading for myself. And because it was a gift, I was in two minds about how to use them. But my cards were always on my coffee table. I had one on my bedside table, and I would be constantly, I was obsessed. I was no longer living or breathing the possibility of something new coming into my life, because I had to have it sorted out. Now, it wasn't always like that. But it was a lot like that. And I very often, if I was worried about a trip, for instance, and I thought, I better make sure I'm not going to have an accident, I would consult the cards. And if I felt that those cards were saying, don't go today, go tomorrow, I would create my reality based on what the cards were saying to me, as a way, like I said, of controlling my destiny. And it was really, in the truth of it all, it was really just all wrong. It was all wrong, but it did serve me. You see, I suppose to gain one thing, I lost another. And what I lost was my ability to manifest, because I would do nothing unless the cards allowed me to do it. Now, that might sound pretty weird to you, but as a tarot reader, I also understand that listening to your own intuition and your higher self is more important than doing the cards, because the cards you can also control the outcome of the cards with your mind, if you want to. And that is why I stopped using the cards when I wanted to manifest, and I only use the cards when I know that my mind and my soul are aligned and they are clear. So what does that look like? Well, if I'm worried about something, like if I was worried about a job, or I'm going to get that job, and I do the cards, I could never do them for myself because they would not make sense. And so I'd have to ring up one of my girlfriends and go, oh, look, I'm getting this in the card. Getting this in the cards. Can you just throw one out for me and check to see what's going on there? So I was relying on the cards, and that is a really bad thing to do. So I often, tell my clients when I teach them how to use the cards not to do that, because your mind can create that outcome, and it's not really the soul that's talking to you anymore. So as a reader, before I start reading for any of my clients, I always make sure that my mind is clear, my heart is clear. There is nothing in the way that could give me a presumption or a judgment about somebody. And then once I start reading the intention of my next client's reason for wanting the reading, then if I just sit with that for a few minutes, pictures start coming up and I'm in flow. Does that make sense? Another thing that I noticed that I can do that's got nothing to do with the cards is that I noticed a long time ago that I can read people's drawings, and I don't know how I could do that. And I did it while I was doing as an art consultant. quite accidentally, as a matter of fact, when I was teaching people how to do a certain art skill or something, you know, teaching them watercolor or using oil pastels, or learning how to paint with a canvas, and I was watching what they were doing, I would just, you know, be absolutely knowing what was going on for them and with them. And I had to learn to shut my mouth, because sometimes, you know, if you're in a different setting and I'm going, oh, I can see this, this and this, I would freak people out. So I learned by my mistakes late in life, actually, when to shut up and when not to say anything unless I got the invitation, or unless it was a workshop where there was this expectation that I could share. And very often I could read the most abstract designs and I would know what was going on. I still have that gift. It's something I don't utilize a lot of, because I'm busy basically doing you know, the typical art class thing. But this year I'm creating new packages where I can have people come on board and do their art, and for me to read their art, to read what I see within their art. And that is for me like reading the cards. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you today about me and reading cards, and why I got to read them right now. It wasn't until later on, actually, and I had this feeling. I even created my own tarot deck, believe it or not. I did that a lot of years ago too. I don't look at it anymore. It was just for me a creative outlet. But I still read these cards. These are the first cards, these cards here, the first cards that I pick up before I start using the tarot. And people say to me, why do you do that, Wanda? Well, these cards give me the what so at the very minute. They give me what's going on in your life right now, what things are holding you back, what obstacles are in your way, and that kind of thing. So this gives me the daily momentum of what's happening in your life, and I will read to that. Then I move into the tarot, because the tarot is the bigger perspective. It's the bigger picture and gives me a little bit more information on what comes up and what needs to be completely given to your attention for the next 2 years. Does that make sense? So that's how I read the cards. So you get the daily, like the what's been happening, like the now and the past, and then the tarot I read gives me like the possible futures that you can move into. So I'll give you an example, right? So one of my friends who I've known for a lot of years came to visit me, and the way in which he was coming to me, I knew he told me, I need a reading from you, Wanda. I need to make a big decision. And I did the tarot. I did about 3 different tarot decks, and he wanted to know, by moving into this in a certain business, that he would make some money. And I did the cards for him, and it was a big fat no, 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 no. And I said, please don't do it. And I remember the disappointment on his face when I said to him, please don't do this. You will lose a lot of money. Please don't do it. And I could see him nodding, and he wasn't really listening. And I thought, oh shit, he's going to do it. Anyway, I hadn't heard from him for months, and I rang him and I said, how are you going? What's been happening? And he said, oh, Wanda, he said, I should have listened to you. He said, I've lost over $100,000 and I can't pay for it. And he basically had to start working full time in about 3 different jobs to start paying off that loss. So I know that with warnings, it can serve you for your best, for your highest interest. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust yourself, because you're relying on another source. And sometimes that is important when you can't make your mind up, when you're struggling between your mind and what your soul is saying. And it's very easy for the mind to quieten the noise or the sound of your soul. And that happened to me too. And I use the cards every day for my clients, but I very rarely use the cards for myself these days, because when I'm reading for my clients, I'm also reading for myself. And there may be something that might come up in their readings, because everything is a reflection of me. Everything. Even if my clients come with a relationship issue, or if they're coming with a job issue, or if they're coming with a lack of self-esteem issue, or not moving ahead, or they're stuck, it will reflect something within myself. And I take note of that now, so that I don't need to read the cards for myself anymore, because I have learned, especially over the last 10 years of my life, so that like from 50 years, even though I've been a tarot reader since I was like 30, I have learned to actually trust my own inner guidance on this level of moment to moment level, right? And so there's another part of me that also that doesn't hear that voice either. So I'm learning to listen in a different way now than what I did before. You see, I think when I turned about 53, I couldn't see anymore. I used to be able, my higher self used to be able to show me what my future would bring, and I would see it in pictures, and I would know it, and I would sense it and feel it and move towards that. And that every time I did that, I was always very successful. But when I was about 53 going on 54, those messages stopped coming. And what happened was there was a shift on the planet then, where it wasn't like that part of me switched off. It was like as if it was not out there anymore. It was inside. And I was really conflicted. And the only way I sort of knew that my intuition was actually guiding me was my gut feeling, was my deep inner knowing. And so therefore, for me right now, what I use is for me now, because in a lot of ways, when my emotions get super high and I'm upset, and I'm distressed, or I'm stressed, or I'm sad, I lose my connection, and I need to take a step back. I really need to take a step back. I find working online a very big distraction to my inner knowing, and I need some time away from the screen. And I need to touch base with nature and with the ocean, and I make time for myself to do that, because that grounds me back again. It gets me out of the headspace, if that makes any sense. So anyway, right now what I'm learning to do is I can very easily read people without cards. These are just a tool. They're just a tool I use. I use different tools to read. I just don't use the cards. I use crystals. I can see your drawings. I see your drawings, I can just be with you and I'll know what's going on. So there's another level of my ability, and that's what will happen with you as well. That will happen with you, with your art, or with whatever you're doing to tap into yourself, right? Your own intuition. Mine definitely comes as a gut feeling. Sometimes it comes visually, sometimes I hear it. So all those senses come into play for me at any time when I know I need to take notice, and that I 100% trust. So that's basically my little story about me and my psychic ability. And why am I sharing this with you today? I'm sharing this with you because the cards are a really good way to help yourself if you're coming from a clear space. So if you want to learn to find a pack of cards that you really like, you know, and go and buy them yourself. Go and buy them yourself, and then before you start reading, make sure you shuffle them up, you know, divide them into three: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The three energies. Divide them up into three, put the pack together again, shuffle normally, and then just ask, hold them in your hand, or you can hold them to your heart like that, and you close your eyes and you just ask, what card is right for me today? What card will best give me the best day today? I want to have a great day. What will best serve me today? Or what do I need to be aware of today? So you can ask like those kind of questions, but ask one question and make sure it is a clear question. And then you just decide, okay, I'm going to pick the top card, or I'm going to pick the 6th card, or I'm going to pick the 10th card. So make sure you have all of that idea, that intention in place before you pick the card. Sometimes if one randomly falls out of the pack while you're shuffling and you see it, that's the card to read. Whether you like that card or not, you need to read it. It's spirit really intervening there. If a card falls out of the pack and it's face down, so so it's like that, you can see the picture but you can't see what the card is on the other side, then you can pick it up and throw it back in the pack. So maybe you want to try that. Maybe you want to have a go at that and see how that works for you. So yeah, so it always works. Make sure that you are clear before you start. If you've got a headache, or if you've got the shits, or if you're cranky, or you're feeling in negative space, don't play with these. Don't play with these unless you can just clear that. Unless you can just clear that space, because you will invite it in, right? So the cards will reflect your inner environment, your subconscious feelings. Don't make that mistake like I did and totally rely on them. Use them as a way of accessing your inner self. Okay, so guys, see you later. Thank you all for listening. I hope it's been helpful. And you have a fab day too. Shirley, thanks for staying on. Penelope, I hope you're still there, Dales. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, I'll see if I can hop on tomorrow and maybe share something else that I've learned that maybe might be able to help you along. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.